Right, so we have finished sanding the paddle and we now need to wipe it down. I use some acetone to wipe that down. So just a bit of acetone, wiping down all the dust, getting rid of it, and so it should be all nice and clean now. As you'll notice, I'm wearing latex gloves. Obviously when you're handling things like acetone, you don't want it to be absorbed into your skin. Normally I'd be wearing a mask as well right now, but it's just easier to talk about this part without a mask. The next part is we have our Kevlar tape, and as you can see it's very flexible, and it's a really dynamic tape. So I tend to just have it without too much tension, because if you see when you put it under tension it can go quite thin, and so you're really unsure about what length you should get. So I just keep it under normal tension and measure how much I'm going to need, gently working my way around the paddle down to the end. Not super accurate, okay, and trimming that. Some nice Kevlar scissors make your job a whole lot easier. Next part is I've just got a board here, and I've just laid some Glad wrap on it so I can keep reusing it, and I just lay my Kevlar tape on that. I will be using my mask for this part because yeah, epoxy is quite carcinogenic, and it's quite cumulative, its effects, and I've got a long life I want to keep enjoying, so I'll be putting on my mask. Right, so I've mixed up my epoxy resin. It's been sitting there for 10 minutes. Right, so now I've got a clean brush and I'm just wetting out my Kevlar tape, and I'm quite generous with this because I can squeeze some of the resin out, and I want it to soak through the entire matrix of the Kevlar. And you'll notice I'm using a black Kevlar tape. Typically Kevlar is gold, but these days you can get coloured Kevlar, and the black definitely looks a lot better on a carbon paddle. When you're mixing your epoxy, always pay attention whether it's volumetric measurements or weight measurements when you are measuring out the components, the two-part components. The reason we use epoxy is because most paddles are manufactured using an epoxy resin, either in the laminate or as part of pre-preg systems, so impregnated in the carbon. Right, so I put that away, and the next part really is quite easy. So I always have two gloves on each hand, so I can peel off and have a clean hand if I need it. And so I basically start at the top and work on one side. And I'm not wrapping it on yet. You can see at this end it's not even, so I work it around gently, bit by bit, until it's roughly even, and then starting at the top point, and just pushing it onto the paddle. And starting and I'm wrapping my finger around. So I flip the paddle over and I'm just pushing the Kevlar down, and straight away I can see that it looks like the Kevlar tape that I'm using is ever so slightly wider than the tape that had previously been on there. So the fact that I allowed only a couple of millimeters when I was doing sanding is really not going to be enough, but that's alright. I've got a little bit of time to work with this, and you know, this is why I'm wearing my gloves, so I can just keep working it on, keep pushing it on. So top thumbs pushing on the top layer, the middle fingers pushing on the back of the blade, the edge of the blade, sorry, and then the third finger's pushing, rolling on the inside. And so now I've done most of the work. I think it's a good opportunity now for me to peel off my gloves. All goes in the rubbish. And I've got myself a blade to help me remove some of this tape. So I'm going to remove the tape now. And again, just trying to not get too much resin on my fingers so I don't put it onto the paddle at all. And already I can see that it's starting to lift the tape away, because the Kevlar tape is, as I said, a little bit wider than the previous one that we've taken off, but that's alright. That's why we're doing this, removing this tape now, so we can go back at a later stage and push it all down. We've got a little bit of time to work with this resin. This resin is actually, I've got about 30 minutes, but yeah, different resins have different gel times, and that's definitely impacted with the ambient temperature in your garage or wherever you're working. So I've removed all the tape, and it's looking quite good. So now I'm just going to wet my fingers ever so slightly on a little bit of resin that's on the board, just so when I rub my finger there, it's going to run really smoothly. It's not going to grip too much onto my Kevlar tape and pull it, and I'm just pushing down those edges that have come up before. Okay, so this is starting to look really nice. It's going down really well. You can see I'm a little bit short, but that doesn't matter. What we're going to do, just to finish it off, is we'll just wrap some PVC electrical tape just around the edge, and that'll give it just under a little bit of pressure, and then that'll give it a nice finish when it's fully set. So now, taking off my set of gloves, I've got myself my electrical tape, and holding it the paddle up, I start on a nice dry portion so it grips the tape, and then just spinning it around under a little bit of tension and just wrapping it around just the bottom end of the tape, so when this all dries it's going to have a really nice finish. And obviously this can be taken off later on, and more colour coordinated finish will be there. So as you can see, we have the paddle it looks really good. So now we've got to let it set. Usually for me it's much easier for me to do a number of paddles at the same time, and or just do one end, let it set and come back the next day and do the other end. You can do both ends, but it's just a lot easier to do one end, because then you don't have to worry about the other end when if you touch it on the ground coming off. So all you've got to do is leave it lying around somewhere where it's not going to get knocked over. And what I tend to do is come back in about half an hour to an hour, depending on your ambient temperature, and just see if any of these edges are starting to lift off. And if they are, I can just push them down while it's still going off a little bit tacky. But I think this is going to look really good, so I'm just going to put this away.